Hello, boys and ghouls. I gotta get like a Tales from the Crypt Keeper mask, and put that shit on. I would love that. I grew up with Tales from the Crypt on Fox 5 at midnight. Every night. I used to watch that shit all the time. Absolutely adore it. That's something I probably will do down the line, is go through the whole Tales from the Crypt series. Because it's been a while since I've watched an episode of that show. But this has nothing to do with Salt, but you guys should be used to this by now. I go on tangents like crazy. That's why my videos are 45 minutes, an hour long. So, but Saw 6. First of all, I want to say, if Nanette, if you see this, I'm sorry. I passed out earlier today, and then when you were offline for a little bit, I fell asleep again, and I woke up with a headache like a half hour ago. And but I promise we will talk later today. So I'll message you right after this movie. I'm passing out again, but when I wake up, I'll message you. But Saw 6, 2009. I forget the director's name. Gertrude, Gertrude. I don't fucking know, but he directed this one and the next one, and he's returning for Saw 10. So I'm interested to see how Saw 10 turns out with him returning to direct. But this has always been my favorite in the franchise. I know it's crazy to some people. Saw 6, it's like my favorite in the franchise. And a lot of it has to do with I just love Hoffman. I think he's such a phenomenal antagonist in this movie. I said it in the last video. I love Detective Hoffman, like, so much. And I joke in the past a few times that the only difference between, like, my watch me watch videos, blind watches, like for movies I haven't seen before, versus my regular videos, is that for the blind watches, the lights are off. Just to, like, get into the groove. Get into the groove, you've got to prove your love to. Like Madonna. But I have a headache. I can't have the lights blasting in my eyes, so we're just going to pretend it's like a blind watch, even though I've seen this movie so many times. So, I love about this movie too is the whole theme here that's being explored with the insurance companies and life insurance, and how they decide basically who lives and dies based on if they got money or not, and just all of that I adore in this movie. And I'm pretty sure that the opening scene with the big dude and the black chick, when they have to cut off parts of their bodies and stuff, I'm pretty sure the black chick, there was a competition or something, or a contest to win a part in the next Saw movie, and she's the one who won. So, good for her, man. Like, it's a pretty cool opening. So, I mean, just to be in a Saw movie, back when these movies were coming out every year, that's some awesome stuff. So good for her for winning whatever that contest was, or whatever she had to do for it. I don't know if maybe she had to cut off her arm to win the contest so she can be in the movie, and then cut off her arm in the movie. But whatever she did, and whatever the contest was, good on her. So let's get into Saw 6, 2009, and see if it still holds up as my favorite in the franchise. I mean, I do not see it changing, but you never know. That's why I always say rewatches are so important to me. I mean, just look at Megan. When I first saw Megan, the day it came out, I loved it up until like the third act, and it nosedived hard for me. And just like I said in my short review, I definitely see it, but I would not recommend going to the theaters and spending money on it. But that's pretty much with any movie nowadays. Like, I haven't been to a theater in I don't even know how many years. Like, here in New York, it's like $22 now for a regular ticket for an adult. It's like almost $40 for an IMAX ticket. Then you factor in popcorn and snacks and whatever the hell that you're going to get there. I mean, obviously, you sneak your own shit in. That's the professional way to do it. But just going to a movie with like a friend nowadays is like $100+ fucking ordeal. I don't go to the theaters anymore. And plus, they show trailers, which you guys know I do not like trailers. I don't watch trailers or anything like that. Hey, stop freezing, camera. Yeah, so I don't know what happened there, but you guys know me by now. I'm not re-recording 6 minutes like before the movie starts. It's not happening. So I'll chalk it up to what I usually do, some bullshit excuse. Ghosts. There's a ghost in my house. It's messing with my electronics. Past that. But rewatches are very important to me because then I rewatched Megan a few days before I had Amy McDonald, who plays Megan, on the channel the other night. And I absolutely loved it. Like, it just hit me so much better in every single way. So that's why I always value rewatches, and they are very important to me because you never know the mind state you're in, or if things are on your mind, if you're distracted, or the mood you're in, or things going on in life, like anything like that can affect how you see a movie and view a movie for the first time. So I always like rewatching a movie, especially a new movie, again, like within a few weeks, a month or so of seeing it for the first time, just to reassess my thoughts on it and see if they change at all. And that's a great example with Megan of one that really did change, like a lot for the better. I've had movies that I've loved in the past on a first watch, then rewatch it the second time and said, why did I love this movie so much? Like, it's really not that great. Like, so it goes both ways. But again, nothing to do with Saw. Let's watch Saw 6 and discuss the hell out of it because I adore this movie. So just to recap from the end of Saw 5, Hoffman pretty much framed Strom for being Jigsaw's accomplice, Jigsaw and Amanda's accomplice. And then Strom ended up getting smushed into a bloody pancake, which is such a great ending. Like I said in that video, I love the ending to Saw 5. And now Erickson, the head of the FBI, he's thinking that Strom is the one who was helping Jigsaw, but he starts doubting it, and then they start closing in on their suspicions of Hoffman in this movie. So that's where we're at. Let's watch the opening kill here. Alright, now we're already like 30 seconds in, and I've said this in a few of these movies. The black chick, I don't know her name. Whenever I don't know a character's name, you guys know how it is. Just describe them how they are. And I've said many times that if some of these people in these traps wake up and then just not move immediately, then they wouldn't pull a pin out or start a countdown timer or anything like that. And they can figure out what the hell's going on first. Of course, you wake up, you've been kidnapped and stuff. You don't know how the hell you got here or where you are or anything like that or what's going to happen to you. So, of course, you're not thinking logically, obviously. But we see that so much in this series. That, like, even with Adam in the first movie, that if he didn't freak out in the bathtub when he woke up, he wouldn't have pulled the drain out and he'd have the key to escape. That's a dick move, like I said in the first video. Like, come on. Like, this guy's in a bathtub. He wakes up, he's not gonna thrash around. Like, he was meant to die in that movie, like 100%. But it happens here. She wakes up and she has a device on her head, and then she just jerks her head and tries to get away and like stand up and pulls the pin out and starts a little video. And I just see it so much in this franchise that I just have to bring it up. And the fat dude, his name's Eddie. She just said his name, and she just said exactly my point. She said right to him, she's like, Eddie, she's like, whatever you do, don't lean forward. And then, of course, he goes like, what the fuck is going on? And leans forward and then pulls his pin out, and then lights turn on and everything. So at least she learned from her mistake. But Eddie has got to start listening to people. So they're both like predatory loners. They loan money to people that they know can't pay back, and that they know their financial limitations, and that they know these people are never going to be able to pay the loans back, and they just bank on repossessing and stuff like that. So that's why they're here. They're predators, as Billy the Puppet tells them, and they have to give a pound of flesh. He says a pound of flesh, but then at the end he says, like, whoever gives the most flesh wins. And then the opponent, the devices on their head, has like screws that's going to screw into the loser's skull. Now, it's very unfair having this skinny woman versus this fat guy who's got so much extra fat like to lend and to cut off and put it into this scale and stuff like that. But at least she's smart near the end when she realizes, she's like, I'm gonna die if I don't do something. And this guy's got a lot more flesh than I do, and just chops her fucking arm off. Like, sucks, but at least she's alive. Good for her. But the scales were heavily tipped against her, like 100%. So even better for her that she wins this and that she gets to live. And I love how she doesn't even hesitate. She immediately, they show him saying, I'm not dying for you, bitch, and she starts lifting his shirt up and all his fat that he can cut off, and she lifts herself up, and she's skinny as a rail, and then the next thing she does is just goes and grabs the wire and wraps it around her arm and just hacks her arm off. Like, she was just no hesitation, just went right for the arm. Like, oh, can you imagine having to cut your own flesh off? Like, you could say that about pretty much 99% of the traps in this franchise, of being able to do what they have to do. But, imagine just having to cut your own arm off to live. And, like, in this situation, you don't even know if you're going to be let go afterwards. Like, she could cut her arm off, and then the thing could still go off and drill into her skull, and she's a fucking dead woman. And not just a regular dead woman, a dead woman with one arm. So, I mean, I don't know. It's such a hard situation. I could never imagine being in that situation. So Eddie's dead. And she wins. And then we get the little recap at the end of, excuse me, coffee for some reason. My first coffee, like when I wake up, always makes me burp. Just a random fact for you guys. But we get the recap at the end of Saw 5 with Hoffman in the glass case that falls back into the ground, and Agent Strom trying to climb up the walls and try to get out, and then just pancake mix of him just falls to the ground. That I love how you see is like his hand, like it's just hanging onto the grate at the top, and then Hoffman comes out after then, like the walls spread apart again, and Hoffman comes out of the box. Awesome. Like, I love that ending in Saw 5, like I said, and I love the recap here. Like, it's just so cool. Like, it looks so good, too. Like, his mangled body when it falls to the ground when the walls separate again looks awesome. So we meet William, who's like the vice president or some shit of this insurance company. And, again, this is why I love this movie so much. I've talked about in the other videos how, like, starting with Saw 3, that Jeff's whole game is, and lesson he's supposed to learn, is forgiveness, which he can't do. He kills John at the end. Then Riggs' whole lesson is patience, and not thinking with his emotions, and rushing into things, and going through unsecured doors. He can't do it either. Then the last movie, which I said is my least favorite game in the whole franchise, even though I did enjoy 5 a lot more than I usually do on the last rewatch. But their whole thing is work together. They couldn't do that. But then we have this, and it just hits home, man, because this is really how it is. like with insurance companies. This is really how it is with people's lives on the line. And just seeing the flashback of the guy talking with William and him saying he's been with this insurance for 10 years. Like, how are you dropping me from the insurance now? Like, and he says that, well, when you started with us, you failed to mention a previous condition. And he's like, what condition? And he said that you had oral surgery to remove a cyst from your jaw. Are you fucking serious? And then he says, he's like, I have heart disease. And that had happened 30 years ago that he had this oral surgery. And yet, that he's being dropped because it's something that happened 30 years ago. That's like getting your wisdom teeth out 30, 40 years ago and then saying, sorry, you didn't mention that. We're going to have to kick you from the insurance now. Good luck with your heart disease. Like, this shit happens all the time in real life, and it's sad. And it's a fucking travesty. And just thinking of all the people that have died when there's a little to big chance that they never had to because of these insurance companies. It's just a great topic to explore here. And if anything, I think this is the best, theme that they play on in the whole franchise. Like, this makes the most sense for John to have a motive against William here. Like, I mean, Jeff, yeah, forgiveness and the whole thing with his son, and Rig and all that stuff with him. But, I mean, this is somebody you could see, you could rationalize it. I mean, of course, still, I mean, you don't fucking put someone in this situation that he puts him into this game, that he has to, kill people or choose between people to save and all of that. Of course not. But if you really want to, like, rationalize it, these are the type of people that deserve this shit the most. Like, if there's any insurance workers watching, sorry, but you're a piece of shit. Lovingly. I say that lovingly. I don't know what channel you think you're on, but I assure you, like, that is the lightest of jokes I make. Now, this is something I've never understood. They, the feds are at the, at the scene of the crime with Eddie, the fat dude who died in the opening trap. And Hoffman shows up. And Erickson says to him, come with me. And I love this reveal that Perez is still alive. And that it was Erickson's call. He couldn't, he didn't know who to trust or who he could trust. And that he knew Jigsaw wasn't working alone, that someone was helping him. And until he knew who it was or felt it was safe, he couldn't guarantee her well-being. So he made it seem that she died in that whole Billy the Puppet explosion that fucked her face up. Still hot, though. Always loved Perez. Even with the little fucked up cuts all over her face. I don't know. Kind of looks like something out of Lamberto Bava's Demons. But they found fingerprints on Eddie's eyelids. And they said on the scale, they find a fingerprint. Now, we find out later that Hoffman was using Strom's hand that was hanging from the grate to plant those fingerprints. And near, I don't remember how far to the end of the movie, but somewhere near like the third act or so, they reveal that there was Freon found on the fingerprints, which means that the fingerprints were from somebody who was dead. How does Hoffman not know that, or didn't think of that? He's been a detective for 20 years. He said that in the flashback when we first met John in the last movie. He's been a detective for 20 years. He doesn't know they can tell the difference between fingerprints from a dead person versus an alive person. That never made sense to me. It still doesn't, and I think it's stupid. Like, there's no way with Hoffman, the Hoffman that we've known from all of the last movie, and I mean, he was introduced in 4, but we didn't really see him too much. But from 5 here, and 7, Hoffman is a very intelligent guy. Like, just to be able to pull off all of this, all these traps, and follow John's plans and stuff like that. He is one intelligent son of a bitch. He's one evil son of a bitch, but he is intelligent. So how he didn't know that always just didn't sit right with me. That's like one of the only flaws in this movie for me. Like logical flaws. It's like this guy really didn't think of this. Like, I don't know. I feel like they wrote that just for another little type of reveal and didn't even think about. You know, Hoffman's a detective for 2 decades. He would know like dead fingerprints versus live ones. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. Also, I love the look of shock on Hoffman's face when he sees Perez alive. I love that. Like you could see it. His face change from normal to just complete shock, and he's trying to hide it as much as possible. But I love his reaction there. Like he killed it with that reaction. Simone, that's the name of the black chick who won the contest to be in this movie. Kind of like Nina Simone, that old singer. Old sinner man, where you gonna run to? Old sinner man. I don't know why I'm in such a song singy mood at 7 in the morning. But fuck it, let's go with it. Alright, now another thing. And this is, I've had a sub or two say to me, like, seems like you don't like any movies. Just because it's just my thing of just pointing out stupid observations and continuity errors and things that don't make any sense and stuff does not mean I don't love and adore a movie. Like 90% of the movies, the 350 something films that I've done on this channel in the last 8 months since I started, I adore and love. It's just my thing. Like it's how I've always viewed movies. Since I was a kid watching movies with my father. He was the same way. Not with horror, he wasn't a horror fan. But we would always watch movies and just be like, what type of stupid line is this? Or like, that glass of milk is half full. And then in the next shot, it's full again. And then it's half full in the next one. Like, anything like that. So it's just so ingrained in me. That's just how I watch movies. So, and it's just fun to explore that avenue of just logic and just like why things don't make sense in movies and nobody on set thought of this and like anything like that. But we found out in the last movie, and I mentioned in the video for it, that Jill, John's wife, was left a box with envelopes, but we didn't see in the last movie what was in there, but there's envelopes and stuff that we find out. I forget if it's in this movie. I'm pretty sure it's in this movie. And basically was instructions for John on how to handle Hoffman, like if need be, and some other things. But I mentioned in that video, I said, there's no way that this lawyer, like we know that Art Blank, the guy from Saw 4, with the device on his neck when Hoffman and Eric Matthews are in the room and Eric's hanging from, like on the block of ice, he was John's lawyer. So I rationalized it away in the last video saying, all right, maybe that was, you know, his regular lawyer, and this guy with the box was like an off the books, like Saul Goodman type, like shady lawyer. But there's no way that the cops weren't immediately, and the FBI especially, on that lawyer's ass and didn't know that John ever saw him or anything like that. Like, how do they not know that? But then we meet this woman here, Pamela Jenkins, who's like the jigsaw like journalist, and she says to Hoffman here that she knows more about John than you would think. And Hoffman says, I doubt that. And she even mentions and says that, that John's lawyer left a box for Jill. And he says, maybe I knew that, maybe I didn't. How did you know? And she said, probate court. This journalist knew, but the FBI had no idea about this. Like, this is what I mean. Like, when I look at movies like this, it's like no one thought of that. No one mentioned that on set. The screenwriters didn't think of that. The director, no one, the actors, the extras, any mind on the set for filming. Didn't think, well, I mean, the lawyer was never found out by the FBI or anything like that. So, like, how was some journalist going to find out? Like, that doesn't make sense. No one thinks of this. I do. I know there's others out there. I know some of you even, excuse me, notice the same shit. So it just like, so it doesn't annoy me, but it just gets to me. It's like, really? Like, no one thought of this? Like, no one? Like, it blows my mind. But somehow, from probate court, this sensational journalist knows all about the box that was left for Jill from John. So, whatever, let's go with it. So this reporter, this journalist, Jenkins woman, she wants Jill Tuck, I guess, to talk to her, interview her, who knows. I don't remember. But Hoffman says he'll see what he can do. And then he goes in to see Simone, who cut her own arm off. All right, and the fact that Hoffman, when he's talking to Simone and questioning her, and she was saying that it was Jigsaw who did this, and he said, you know, why? And she said that they were ruining people's lives, and she starts getting emotional about it. Like, she does feel bad about it, about, you know, being a predatory loner and stuff, and said that Jigsaw did this to you. And he said, you didn't cut off your own arm? And she said, I did. And he said he wanted us to learn. And he says, well, did you? The fact that nobody tackled this motherfucker and brought him to the FBI immediately blows my mind. You hear a fucking detective asking questions like that? If I was in the room, immediately, this guy is the accomplice of Jigsaw. Who asks somebody missing an arm in a hospital, did you learn from this? That's like Jigsaw's whole MO is trying to teach people lessons and trying to give them a choice to live and stuff, to learn from their past mistakes and to get a new lease on life and all his bullshit that he thinks is some amazing philosophy that he came up with. That's just such odd questioning from Hoffman there, that I can't believe that nobody said anything or thought that was suspicious in any way. So we see the flashback of Jill getting the box from the lawyer, the mystery box that somehow nobody knew about. And I do like how there's 6 envelopes in there, numbered, and this is the 6th film. Clever little thing there. And then when we see her drinking a glass of wine, you know, in her apartment, she's holding the envelope with the number 6 on it. So I like the nice little hints and references, not a hint, but like nice little references to just this entry in the franchise, this being the 6th one. Cool, it's cool stuff. Then Jill ends up getting a call from the journalist, from Pamela Jenkins, and saying, you know, this is me calling yet again, and I'd love to talk to you and clear things up about your husband. I'll buy you a cup of coffee or lunch or something. And as she's listening to that voicemail come in, Jill picks up one of the envelopes, and there's a picture of Jenkins in the envelope. So John even thought ahead and knew about Pamela Jenkins. All right, now we get the thing about the jigsaw piece cut out of the victim here, because I mentioned in the last video for 5, and then it never was brought up. And I was like, was I dreaming this? Like, I know I wasn't. So it's in this one that they bring it up and say that on this latest victim with Eddie, the fat dude from the beginning, that it was a different knife used to cut the jigsaw piece out, that this was just a knife with a serrated edge. And all the other jigsaw victims that this mortician guy examined, every victim of the jigsaw killer was used with a surgical, precise, perfect blade. And that the only other victim that used this same knife as Eddie was Seth Baxter, the one who killed Hoffman's sister. And we know that Hoffman killed him basically and made it look like a jigsaw trap to get revenge. And then they mention that if it's a different knife, and I love how Perez immediately, like as soon as she enters the picture again in this movie, you can see in her eyes, you can see in her demeanor and stuff that she suspects Hoffman. Like, absolutely. Like, she does not believe Strom had anything to do with this. She thinks right off the bat that Hoffman is the one. And you could see it in her eyes, you could see it in her expressions. And then when they mentioned that we're going to go back and look at the tape from the Seth Baxter kill, because the tape from the one with Eddie is missing. So obviously Hoffman took the tape. He didn't think about the one with Baxter. So then later we get that great scene when they're encoding the voice and trying to get the voice changer away and get the actual person's voice. Love that scene so much. But he says, Agent Strom was the one who made the tape. And then Perez looks at him and says, yeah, maybe. Like, I love all of that. Like how she is so intelligent and sees right through Hoffman's bullshit. I love Perez so much. And when these movies were coming out every year, I was so happy when this one came out and I saw that Perez was alive still. I said, that's great. I said, I'm so happy that they have this character back. Now, I love this whole scene too, between Jill and Hoffman. When Jill shows up at the clinic that she works at, or owns, I think she owns it, right? And Hoffman's sitting there waiting for her. And they go into her office. And he starts saying that the game starts tonight, change your plans. And she's like, that's not what John wanted. And he said, well, John's dead. And his work's almost done. Give me the envelopes. So he knows about the box and the envelopes and everything. He doesn't know how many there are. So she gives him 5 of the envelopes. And again, I love how his envelope is number 6. Like, again, tying into the entry and the title here. Awesome stuff. And I just love their whole conversation. Like, they have a great dynamic together, the two of them. And, I mean, who didn't know from when we first met Jill in part 4 that she was just the innocent ex-wife of John and that didn't know any of his work? I mean, obviously we knew that she was involved. Like 100%. But now is when they reveal it, like, for a damn sure. Like, she knew about this game, this final game that's being played. That's why when he says the game starts tonight, she says, well, it's not the plan. And he says, well, I'm working alone now. And she says, I know, I'm just carrying out John's final request, which is great foreshadowing to his final request being the final envelope being taking care of Hoffman, which I love that little bit of foreshadowing there. It's so subtle, and if the first time you see this movie, you would hardly pick up on that the final request from John is Hoffman and dealing with him. Love that. Then he just says, when this is done and over, like, we no longer speak. And he just walks out. Such a great scene between the two of them. So, William, the insurance dude, gets kidnapped by Hoffman in the pig mask after he stupidly shoots a security guard. Like, I mean, and the way they shoot it too, like, that you see the silhouette, like, because they're like pane glass kind of, but like they're pretty like almost opaque, but like you can see through them a little bit, and they purposely make the shadow look like he's holding a gun, like this person, and then William automatically goes and grabs his gun, and then like hides and circles back around and says, "Don't fucking move." And as soon as he turns around, he shoots the guy, and then sees it's a security guard, and he's like, "Oh, damn it! Oh fuck, man!" And then he gets fucking injected, and he gets kidnapped by Hoffman, and he wakes up chained with the mask on, oxygen mask, and then he gets his video. And a tiny little thing, but I love that, again, like how personal this whole story is for John. That we find out a little later that John went to William with the insurance company and said that he has money's not an issue and that he found some treatment in another country that can help him, and just saying that the insurance they'll drop him and everything like that. I love how his tape starts, and it's not the usual Billy the Puppet. It's John, like him with his face in full view, and he wants William to see him and remember him, and because this is so personal to John. And maybe this is why he saved this one for last. I mean, it's not the last Saw movie, yeah, but this was like the final game, basically, like left over from John's work before he died. And it makes sense that he would save the most personal vendetta that he had and vengeance that he wanted, basically, for this guy. I also love the little reveal at the end here, like during the video for William, with John saying that if you don't complete the 4 tests that he has to complete, that he has a like device around all 4 of his limbs, and that each test he does, it'll release one of them, but if he doesn't complete all 4, they'll detonate. And then he shows like a little demonstration on a dummy, and like the fucking hands just explode. And William freaks the hell out and says that if you don't complete this in 60 minutes, then you'll never see your family again. Then they immediately go to the next scene with the kid and his mom, making you think that's his family. Yeah, they used this already in Saw 3 with Jeff and Lynn, and making you think that Lynn was having an affair, and having the guy she was having an affair with say that, like, what do you want? And him saying a divorce. And I love that too. So they did kind of this already, but I still love that reveal at the end when you find out that that's not his family. Those are the family of somebody that he basically killed. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it was the person in the flashback at the beginning, right? With the oral surgery and stuff like that. Pretty sure. But I love that whole idea there. Even though they did do kind of the same thing as Saw 3. Now, something interesting about this installment is that William has like the easiest tests in this whole franchise. This first one here, like the employee who works for him, and pretty much everybody in these traps and stuff throughout his whole game are employees of his. This guy John says, has been smoking his entire life. He's only 52 years old, but he has a history of high blood pressure and heart disease and stuff like that. And they have to hold their breath. Like, that's it. That's the game. Of course this guy is gonna lose. Like, come on. Like, that's not even a test. That's not a game. That's nothing. That's a guaranteed win for William. And it just makes me always think that John just wanted William to just die viciously at the end of this. And gave him the easiest test ever. Like, going through this whole movie. For this whole hour he's got to go through. Every time they take a breath, there's clamps that go around their body and stuff, tighter and tighter. This guy's a fucking smoker with high blood pressure and stuff like that. This guy can't hold his fucking breath long. And William's fine. Like, he could hold his breath, and he does, and the other guy dies. Like, I don't know. I feel it's so simple of a test. And not even could this older dude, I mean, he's not that old, he's 52, but he's older than William, it seems like. But not only can he not hold his breath, he can't hold his piss in either. Like, we have to get a nice mandatory shot of him pissing his pants while this is happening. So he can't hold his breath, he can't hold his piss in. Like, this guy can't hold on to anything, even his own life. So, older man dead, and William gets one of the keys to take one of the devices off his arm. So, 1 device down, 3 more to go. And then we see the son and the mother with the whole corrosive hydrofluoric acid and stuff like that, and the switch that says live or die. And she's looking at the camera that's pointed at them. And she's screaming, and I get it. Again, like, you're in this situation, you don't know what the hell's going on. But does this, like, waking up in a situation in a cage like this with acid and a vat of acid, like, in the cell with you, like, does anybody gonna think that screaming for help, that anyone's coming to help you? Like, this is not a situation where, like, there's just a nice fucking civilian who's like a good Samaritan who's just wandering through this fucking building, who's gonna be like, oh shit, someone's yelling, let's go help them. Like, no one's helping you. Like, you know that you were kidnapped and taken here. Like, why even bother screaming for help is my point. Jenkins be kidnapped, yo. Now, I'm not going to talk about, like, every conversation that John has with William in the flashbacks, but blanket statement, I love all of it. Like, they just had the little flashback the first time John met William, and him explaining the whole formula that William himself devised of how to figure out who's willing, who they're willing to cover, who they're not willing to. And John brings up, the most important human factor is that the will to live. And that if you're faced with death, until you're faced with death, how do you know if you have the will to live? That whole scene is awesome. And then every other conversation that we see between them, I love every single scene. So blanket statement on that because we're already at 40 minutes here. So I'm not going to be going through every single scene with them in the flashbacks, but every scene with them is brilliant. All right, so the second game here, or test, I love first of all that there's a Billy the Puppet like hanging from the ceiling and he's talking instead of like a video. That's cool. And again, like this, if anything, William goes through more mental torture in this movie than any type of physical harm, really. Like until he dies at the end, which is like the physical like torture and the most finite. But he's has this test here, and it's a great point though that John brings up. It says that his secretary or whatever is like in her middle-aged woman with a history of diabetes, or that she has diabetes, something like that, and she has a family though that's gonna miss her. And then there's this young guy who has no history of illness or anything like that, but he has no family, nothing like that. He'd disappear without a blip on the world's radar, and he has to guess. He has to pick which one to choose. And John says, according to your policy and stuff, the secretary has less of a chance to survive. And he says it's not that easy when you have to face the people that their blood is going to stain your hands. All of that. Absolutely awesome. Love that whole dialogue from John there. So obviously, William chooses to save the secretary, the middle-aged woman, because if anyone's working in an office and shit like that, a good secretary is mad hard to come by. Interns or whatever that guy was, the young dude, they're a dime a dozen. It's a revolving door. You find a good-ass secretary you've been with forever, you don't want to let that bitch go. So he made the right choice, in my opinion. The son that's held captive with the mother that they make you think is William's family, fucking annoying little prick. Like, I really don't like him as a character at all. I mean, he ultimately chooses to kill William at the end, but he's just annoying. And he talks like shit to his mom and stuff. Like, they're both in this situation together. Like, it's your mother. Like, show some fucking respect. He just treats her like shit and like she's an idiot throughout this whole movie. Then we see Jenkins, the journalist, which we find out at the end is William's actual wife. And that's his wife or his sister. Something like that. I want to say maybe sister. But it could be his wife. Who cares at this point? Doesn't matter. But I don't like that kid. Like, just a worthless character. They could have just had the mom there and make you think that's the wife. Like, that's my opinion on that. And then I love in this flashback here how with John, Amanda, and Hoffman, and they show Hoffman bringing in the guy who killed Jeff's son, who was in the rack trap at the end of 3. And they show Hoffman working, like doing last minute adjustments, as Amanda says. Then I just love how they hate each other, basically. Like, Amanda does not like Hoffman, and Hoffman doesn't give a shit about Amanda. Like, they just don't care for each other, do not like each other at all. And we know because Amanda's basically has like a fatherly, feel towards John and everything for saving her life and giving her a new lease on life, which we know was bullshit anyway because it didn't work and she ended up dead. But I just love their whole hatred towards each other. Like, so cool to watch them just bicker and argue. I love that we see earlier in the film here, we see Jill, after Hoffman leaves the office, talking with her. And then Jill sees like the flashback of John talking to her and saying that methadone, the clinic she runs, methadone is just a band-aid. It doesn't fix anything, and that these junkies and stuff that you work with are just going to keep hurting you over and over again, and that he found a way that works better. And then he shows Amanda, which we know Amanda was going to this clinic and stuff because she was a drug addict. And she says, like, it works, Jill. Like you saved my life. And then Jill starts to kind of see it John's way a little bit. And then I love how we see Jill in the flashback here to Saw Three's events before the game with Jeff starts. I love how Jill comes, and he says to her, like, "Why'd you come?" And she says, like, John, don't do this. Like, just can stop already." And he's like, "Well, I promise you, once this is all done, like, I'll provide a way out for you." And her saying that I wish that was now, and he gives her a key, which then we see a flashback to the last movie, was the key around her neck for the box. Awesome stuff. Love that. I don't think in 6 videos now I've even mentioned, I love John's little robe. Like, anyone else love that shit? Like, his black robe with the on the outside and on the inside it's red. Looks comfortable, man. Like, that's the way to be on your deathbed and shit. Like, I don't think he was wearing it in 3 on his deathbed, but he's wheeling around in that wheelchair in the flashback wearing it, and we've seen him wear it many times throughout this whole franchise. Looks awesome. Looks comfortable. I want to get one of those. If anyone wants to ever send me some horror stuff, let me know. But number one, John's robe. Send me that shit. I love you forever. Like usual, I said I wasn't going to get too much into the flashbacks with William and John, but God, I fucking love this scene. When he's just talking about his alternate treatment and that he can get in another country, and William telling him that if he goes outside the system and stuff, he'll be dropped completely. He'll be on his own, and this cost will be staggering. And John says, "Don't talk to me about money. I have money." And all of that, and then just looking at the TV with the politicians and saying, like, they always say that the healthcare and stuff should be between a doctor and their patient, not by the government. And now I know it's all bullshit that it's run by the fucking insurance companies is who decides. That whole conversation is one of my favorite scenes in the franchise. Like, absolutely amazing scene with great dialogue, and just when William starts saying, like, "John, the type of cancer you have, it's malignant and inoperable. Like, even if this treatment works, it's going to come back." And John's saying, "Wow, that was really smooth rolled off your tongue." And then he says something else, and he's like, "That was even smoother. Like, and that was downright slick." And, like, I love John, man. I love Tobin Bell. Like, Tobin Bell is just a fucking legend. Like, he really is. Like, I can't wait to see him again in Saw 10. Like, and Amanda, Shoni Smith. Like, I'm really excited for that movie. Like, I'm starting to, like, think of what movies I'm really excited for this year. Evil Dead Rise is one. I don't really, Maxine, if we get it this year, it's supposed to. Like, that's probably my most anticipated one. But Saw 10 is right up there. Like, probably in my top 3 most anticipated movies for this year. So, but Tobin Bell, man, like, he just kills it in every one of these films. Everything else I've ever seen him in, he's amazing. Like, what a legendary actor who I feel does not get enough credit. Like, you do not hear Tobin Bell brought up when discussing, like, excellent actors. Like, you really don't. Like, when's the last time you were discussing amazing actors with a friend or something like that? It's sort of a group, and somebody brought up Tobin Bell. Never. Like, for me, like, I don't think I've ever heard that name come out of someone's mouth, which is a crime. Because, God, just for this series alone, Bell just deserved fucking awards. Like, just a slew of them for his work in this whole franchise. And not even counting the rest of his career. But, I love him so much. Then we have William's third trap here with Debbie, the lawyer for his firm. And she's in a fucking, like, a maze. Like a rat maze. And she has some device around her neck that will detonate when the timer runs out and, like, explode her brain or some shit. And this fire and, like, fucking hot steam and stuff everywhere. And again, like, William's really not getting physically hurt or anything. Like, yeah, he's burning himself a bit. He ain't burning like she would down there with flames flying in her face. So, like I said, like he has it the easiest. Maybe Jeff too. I mean, Jeff has it pretty easy too. Let me think. Yeah, Jeff doesn't have anything done to him, like at all. He has the woman who was the eyewitness to his son being hit by the car. He gets his cheek stuck on the really cold bars to get the key and rip some of his skin off. That's it. And he gets the judge out of the pig fucking carcass trap, if you can even call it that. No problem with him. The rack trap at the end, he has to take a bullet, but he doesn't end up taking it. He pulls the key off and the shotgun blows the fucking judge's face away. So he doesn't go through anything at all. So maybe Jeff does have it easier, but William has it pretty easy. Like compared to like the people in the last movie in 5 and like Riggs in 4, like he doesn't really go through physical pain either, but like I don't know, just something about the traps that and the tests that he has to go through here in this movie, William. I feel just are just not hard. I mean, like I said, mentally and emotionally, yeah, he's going through like absolute torture that way. But physically, he's really not hurting that bad. And if the dickhead son at the end didn't pull the lever down to kill him, he'd probably just walk away like pretty unscathed, like from all of this. So I don't know. Like I don't know how to feel about that. Yeah. So Debbie's dead, and this fucker still has a half hour left on the timer. He's been through 3 of the 4 tests that he's got to do. So he's doing good on time. Like he went through 3 tests and there's 27 and change minutes left on the clock. So I don't see how the time was even an issue here. Like the first thing with the breathing, he did that in 5 minutes. I looked at the timer when it ended. It was like 55 and change. So not even 5 minutes. So even just law of averages and just taking that into consideration, they should all be around 5. I mean, let's even call it 10 minutes. And he has 4 tests, 40 minutes. That's on the high end. So the timer doesn't even really matter here for William. Pretty sure now that Pamela is his sister, not his wife. Because I remember they just said a little bit ago his last name was Easton. Her name's Jenkins. So unless it's his ex-wife, I really think it's his sister though. So let's see at the end here if I'm right about that. But if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure it's his sister. And Pam, she won't even listen to the rest of the tape. She listens to a little bit of it and him saying on the tape, like, and you who unjustly hurt others. And she just, fuck you, and just smashes the cassette tape on the ground. She's like, I'm not even hearing this shit. And even thinking about cassette tapes and stuff, couldn't they have, like, easily found out who Jigsaw is by just, like, looking for somebody who's bought, like, a shit ton of VHS tapes and cassette players? Like since the Jigsaw killing started, like isn't that something that they could have narrowed it down? Like if they went to like checked out all the like electronic stores and stuff like that, and be like, have you had anybody in here buying a shit ton of cassette tapes and cassette players? Like, oh yeah, we've had this guy and stuff, and then boom, Bob's your uncle, like John. Like I don't know, like it just came to me now, but it's like they go through a lot of cassette tapes and VHS tapes in this whole series. Like, maybe that's some lead they could have followed to figure out who this was a lot earlier. And then we cut to Hoffman with Erickson and Perez, and him saying that Perez telling him they found the tape for Seth Baxter, and it was in pretty rough shape, but they were able to authenticate it, and it's definitely a distorted voice, and it's not John Kramer's. And that the tech is working on trying to descramble the voice. And leads up to such a great scene. And that's the thing too, like earlier when I mentioned of like nitpicking certain things and like just stuff that doesn't make sense, it all also plays into how much I like a scene or something like that. Like the whole thing when he just like annihilates the whole police station, like Michael Myers Halloween 4 style, is so ridiculous. But it's such a great scene that I don't care. But then like when I'm thinking of something tiny and minuscule, it's like this bothers me a little bit. I don't know. It's so funny how that works. Now, this is probably my favorite trap slash test in the movie is the carousel when they have all the workers and stuff like that strapped to the carousel and it's moving around and then he has to hit a button or something to stop on somebody to get shot with a shotgun or some shit and basically has to again decide who lives and dies. And again, no physical harm whatsoever to this man. Like I feel like William spends like 50% of this movie crying just from like seeing all his employees die. Like that's like 50% of his performance here is just crying and like oh god and stuff like that. I still like the character. I mean he's a douchebag for everything that he's done and the type of work he's in and how many people have died because of him and his policies. But I like the character of him. But he cries like a baby through a lot of this. I love about this scene how once they know the stakes here and that two of them are going to live and four will die